It is a very good afternoon to you, Algeria. Good afternoon, Morocco, Tunisia. Good afternoon, Guinea, Liberia, Central African Republic. A very good afternoon to you, Djibouti, Eritrea, Mauritius. Good afternoon to you, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Thami Ngubeni. This is where you get the African perspective. It's where we meet to look at the latest in news, sport and business. On the agenda for you this afternoon, a look at G20 electricity partnerships as we focus on power pools in the G20 and the impact that they can make as far as regional collaboration is concerned. That will be a dual cast with SAFM's Ashraf Garda, host of the National Pulse. We'll also take a look at the Commonwealth Businesswomen's Network, which is currently meeting in the Maldives. What are the states of financing, as well as the barriers and financing models that can be put in place to ensure that there's inclusivity for women entrepreneurs who form part of the Commonwealth? And also look at the Land Bank and partnerships with the European Union and the Department of Agriculture to remove the existing barriers and also change ownership structures within the wine industry in South Africa. That and a whole lot more coming up for you this afternoon on Africa in Business.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
We begin here this afternoon. The third edition of the EU African SME Summit 2025 is currently underway in Johannesburg, South Africa. Now, this year's summit is focused on scaling Africa's sustainable future, leveraging the African Continental Free Trade Area and the European Union's Global Gateway Strategy. This two-day event has brought together over 300 entrepreneurs, 55 speakers, policymakers, innovators, as well as industry leaders from 86 countries, all exploring how SMEs and mid-sized companies can drive sustainable growth across the African continent. Channel Africa's business reporter, Innocent Samosa, has more.
The discussions at the summit are focused on key themes such as access to finance, digitalization, business services, energy access, net zero and carbon offsetting, among others. Organized by European entrepreneurs in partnership with the EU African SME Alliance, the summit aims to promote sustainable development, unlock trade opportunities and strengthen business collaboration between Africa and Europe. Teki Bernard is one of the organizing team.
So I think if I have to take a look around us here, I think there are probably at the moment about 150 people, but we're hoping that tomorrow, which is the big day for us, when our young entrepreneurs are presenting. So today is only a half-day session where we have all of the delegates from Germany are obviously talking about what they are bringing to Africa from a trade perspective and from a support for our entrepreneurs perspective. Tomorrow is a full day where we have these pitches, B2B, where young people are going to pitch, to these, hopefully these investors.
Business Development Manager at Jimmy Trade Africa, Andrew Okoto Ado, is calling on small and medium enterprises across the continent to strategically position themselves to fully harness the opportunities offered by the African Continental Free Trade Area.
So it starts from three things. Number one, you need to be attractive as an entrepreneur. What are you doing? Does somebody need it? Is it desirable, feasible, viable? So for me, I connect that to the attractiveness of an entrepreneur. The third thing is about positioning. So you mentioned Nigeria. Nigeria is a very big market, a lot of competition, a lot of trade, nuances when it comes to corruption, when it comes to government regulations, a lot of things that could harm entrepreneurs to thrive. But then it also presents some sort of another type of opportunity. It means that African entrepreneurs are resilient, it means they can break barriers, they can maneuver various sort of intricacies that would undermine them from growing.
Tebo Hotlaku, CEO of Reabetswe Botlhale Foundation, who will be representing South Africa at the upcoming Youth Africa Leadership Summit in Ghana later this year, shares what he hopes to gain from this summit.
So we're hoping to get more into understanding of the investments, and also for as innovators, we are up to understand the new trends that the market could be able to, for us to grow into, increasing the standard of economy, where that we could to create job opportunities for young people.
Meanwhile, Nyiko Mtembu from Procure Africa believes digital transformation and innovation can play a vital role in ensuring sustainable growth for small and medium-sized enterprises in Africa.
Digitization is very important, especially when we are now a globalized economy. To be accessible via digital means is very key for all types of business sizes. And we've found that most businesses are not easily accessible digitally through your traditional means like Google search. So we found that we need to solve for that problem for businesses and communities that are not tech savvy by creating an easy to access platform, easy to use platform that does not cost.
For Channel Africa News, I am Innocent Samosa at the third edition of the EU African SME Summit 2025 in Johannesburg.
The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
Matuka Wanji Nonse, Zukani, the Shy Guy, a Morning Switch.
Have you ever listened to a song and then it gives you goosebumps? Cause it takes you way back in the 80s. My goodness. Yay. Woo. Hey, baby. You hear Yvonne Chaga Chaga there. I wanna talk to the DJ. And then the DJ goes like, hey baby, I've got you on the other side. Huh? There were no WhatsApps then, right? There were no sliding in the DMs at the time. Oh man.
Your weekend mornings are activated with the Shy Guy on the Morning Switch. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 14 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. If you have any news, sport or business stories that you'd like to share with our viewers or with our listeners right here on Channel Africa, please do send us your emails at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. You're also most welcome to engage with us on the various social media platforms on Instagram, YouTube and X. You'll find us at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook, we are at Channel Africa. You can also listen to us on the DSTV audio bouquet channel 802, on OpenView on channel 628, and you can live stream us on www.channelafrica.co.za. We are also available on the SABC Plus app, which you can get at the Google and Apple Play stores. In just a moment, we will focus on our weekly G20 special, and we'll be joined by Ashraf Garda from SAFM as we focus partnerships, specifically in the energy sector. It's 15 minutes after 4.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa.
Well, there we are. Once again, Channel Africa, SFM, this wonderful collaboration. Thami, another day, another week. Wonderful to connect with you live on SAFM Live on Channel Africa.
Oh, it certainly is an absolute pleasure, and what an opportunity, Ashraf, to be able to delve into the specifics of the G20 and really dissect them. It is indeed a very big year for South Africa, a big year for the African continent.
No question about that. So let's pick up on this, right? The African Development Bank says over 640 million in the continent, people that is, have no access to energy. And that's a crazy number. And that the electricity access rate for African countries is just over 40%. So 4 out of 10 on the continent have access to electricity, and that is the lowest in the world. Now, the bank says access to energy is crucial for reducing the cost of doing business and for unlocking economic potential, that is, as well as creating jobs. And I'm sure you have much to say about that too, Thami.
No, certainly. I mean, just a couple of days ago, we were talking about the World Bank Board reversing its decision on banning nuclear developments. And they now want to reinstate these and allowing these to be reinstated because they say they're going to really help the African continent develop its energy infrastructure. But that also a very controversial debate. But back to the topic of the day, we are going to be talking in just a moment with the director of the African Energy Leadership Center at the University of the Witwatersrand, Professor David Paho. A very good afternoon to you, Prof. Thank you very much for your time. Now, you, Prof, have observed that the South African region seems to have regressed when it comes to the power supply, as it used to have one of the most developed power pools in Africa in the 1990s. Professor Powell is with us this afternoon to unpack how the G20 economies can assist the regions on the African continent to share electricity through power pools. Prof, good to have you with us. Perhaps let's start with the basics here. Perhaps let's start with the ABCs here. When we talk about power pools, what exactly are we making reference to? What exactly are we making reference to?
Thank you so much, and good afternoon also to your listeners. A regional energy power pool is basically where countries in a region share electricity via interconnected grids. So one country probably produce more electricity than the next, so they share the electricity. And in this climate where we're also looking at energy transition at renewable energy, there will be some countries with more renewable energy than others. So in an interconnected grid system, countries can actually share electricity depending on where the shortage is. The Southern Africa Power Pool is probably the most advanced on the African continent. We have about 5, but all of them are at different stages of development.
And my apologies, Afra. I just want to pick up on the back of that. You mentioned, Professor, that Southern Africa has one of the most developed. That's probably because 1995, the SADC one started for the Southern African power pool. But why are power pools no longer the main drivers of electricity transmission on the continent anymore? What changed? On the continent anymore.
Nothing has changed. It's just that the power pools are set up, but there are some structural challenges, especially on the African continent. I think Ashraf talked about the lack of access by well over 600 million people on the African continent. The lack of infrastructure for generation, transmission, and distribution, especially in rural areas, and also lack of investments, especially in the global south. So you find that investment is focused more on the global north in terms of infrastructure and other developments. I think that has been a challenge. The other challenge is that we have not kept pace in terms of technology and also capacity and skills development to ensure that these power pools actually serve the needs of the continent.
I mean, if I can come in, I certainly think about, when you say power pools, I think of these car pools or lift club pooling, and that sort of gets a good understanding of how people just share, right? But in this case here, considering the power pools will be, cross-territorial, your thoughts, therefore, in terms of on this continent, which power pools can be rehabilitated, either rehabilitated or effectively already under construction. And perhaps if you can share with us just how do you expect from a South African 2025 presidency of the G20 they can use their leverage to push that so it can manifest in a most effective way.
That's a very important question. Like I said, all the 5 power pools are in different stages of development. Even the more advanced one like the Southern Africa Power Pool, there's still some challenges. But be that as it may, I think the G20 presidency, as you can look in terms of its mandate, is to drive one of the biggest priorities is energy access, security of supply and other things. So the biggest drive, obviously, is to leverage the G20 to invest more, to drive the multilateral banks like IMF and also the regional banks to invest more in infrastructure, on the African continent based on where the status of all the regional power pools are. As you can imagine, Ashraf, you've highlighted the energy, electricity access, that differentiation. In North Africa, electricity access is hovering between 90 to 100%. But on when you go to sub-Saharan Africa, it's much lower. So there's a need for us to have a more concerted effort driven by the G20, and the South African presidency will probably build on what has been achieved with the other presidencies to ensure that we prioritize electricity, low carbon electricity access across the country. Across the continent. One of the key issues that we can focus on is that regionally, Africa has abundance of renewable energy sources. So maybe this is an opportunity for more investments in renewable energy so that they can be integrated into the grid, and hopefully we can leapfrog in terms of electricity access while we are also addressing our just energy transition imperatives in line with climate change obligations.
Okay, Thami?
Prof, power pooling is really all about sharing. It's about shared resources, shared risk, shared benefits. But how do you ensure that some countries don't end up benefiting more than others? For example, how do you ensure that South Africa doesn't end up taking the bulk of the power that has been generated from these pools? Also acknowledging the fact that countries have different power needs, I guess also depending on their level of quote-unquote development.
No, I think that's a very important question, and also it's also the response of the global community, specifically G20, in terms of identifying the disparities in terms of infrastructure. South Africa, for example, has Eskom, which has a huge power generator. I mean, on the African continent, South Africa accounts for 40% of electricity generation. So it's in a much better position than our neighboring countries. So hence the G20, specifically in terms of the investments, the whole idea of making sure that the financial models for infrastructure are such that they enhances infrastructure development, so that they lower the cost of capital for energy infrastructure across the African continent and obviously the whole rest of the global south. But even more importantly, as I said, the multilateral banks and the development finance institutions across the continent really focus and optimize on the resources which are needed to ensure that our infrastructure, the electricity grid, is up to scratch across the whole continent, so that we don't have disparities, because there's always going to be a challenge. If a country dominates, they can also monopolize electricity price, and those kind of things. And at the end of the day, it's not going to be in the greater interest of the region. And there is no way, from a development point of view, you can have isolated pockets of development, whereas the rest of the continent, or access to electricity, there are disparate areas where there's 100% in one area and there's only 40% in others. Regional integration is going to be key. It's in our best interest as a community to ensure that at least at a regional level, there's that drive to make sure that we normalize and we optimize all the gaps that are available or that are there within the infrastructure environment. I think that's going to be key for G20, not just for this G20 presidency, but beyond, because it's going to be key in terms of how do we ensure that well over 600 million and probably 1 billion people who don't have access to clean cooking resources are catered for to drive their enhance their standards of living and industrial competitiveness.
Okay, let's conclude this conversation, Prof. Maho, with this, right? I mean, I think people listening are saying, okay, there's clearly benefits for the power pooling, but perhaps they also want to know what would be the negative. So if you can just assist us to wrap up with what are the actual benefits across the board, economic, environmental, infrastructure of power pooling, but are there negatives as well?
There are negatives. Obviously, look, regional power pools will enhance shared resources in terms, especially with if you have limited resources. But I think, as has been highlighted, there are also negatives where, there could be a monopoly on electricity access or price, or if there are some challenges in neighboring countries with access electricity could probably manipulate pricing of electricity cross-border. And also the other challenge also is you need to have regional policy and framework harmonization, so that the prices that are charged across a particular region are similar, so that there's no advantage by one country over the other. And what is the biggest challenge is that for countries like South Africa, where the traditional form of electricity is fossil fuel, which basically is available 24 hours a day, as compared to maybe another country where the electricity is generated from renewables, which is intermediate. You have a situation where the one who can deliver energy or electricity 24 hours has an advantage, because the other people, because the sun is no longer shining, they cannot deliver on it. So there's also those discrepancies and anomalies that we have to deal with. So there's always going to be a challenge. So that's why policy harmonization and also political will from across the region is going to be quite critical to ensure that we are in this together. Electricity access should be the same from Malawi to South Africa, to Lesotho,
maybe that's a good way to end about electricity access. Same South Africa, Malawi. Lots of number crunching, and I think lots of negotiations about who gets a seat at the table. Prof. David Paho, much appreciate your time. The director of the African Energy Leadership Center at the University of Witwatersrand. Thami, once again, wonderful collaboration. We're going to do it again next week.
Certainly, looking forward to that. And just as a final parting shot, I'm just thinking here, Ashraf, this interdependence that will then culminate from these power pools. It really means regions now have vested interest to ensure that there is domestic and regional stability and security, because we are going to be even more intrinsically linked. When one coughs, the entire region will end up catching the flu. So maybe that's also a plus and a minus when we look at that. Thank you once again, Ashraf Garda, there on SAFM, the National Pulse. And thank you once again to Professor David Paho.
With the ever-changing
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
It is exactly 28 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Certainly a very interesting conversation there around the G20. Do stay with us. This time next week, we'll be bringing you other aspects of the G20 as preparations are underway towards the summit proper at the end of the year. In just a moment, we'll be heading over to our markets desk, where we take a look at the latest market indicators with Nosipho Zuma, followed then by the latest from the business of sport with Nosipho Zuma.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Good afternoon. In your business indicators, the SAWA, $1 is trading at 17.99 in South Africa. In Botswana is trading at 13.28. Namibia, it is trading at 17 Namibian dollars 99. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 24 kwacha 115 to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shillings 60. In Ethiopia, it is trading at 135 birr 647. In Uganda, it is trading at 3,578 shilling. In Tanzania, it is trading at 2,611. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,543 naira. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 50 Egyptian pound 36. In Tunisia, it is trading at 2 dinar 93. In Algeria, it is trading at 129 dinar 51. In Morocco, the dollar is trading at 9 dirham 10. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 911 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,853 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,367 and platinum at $1,277 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $77.68 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nusi Pozoma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you to Nosipo Zuma for the latest market indicators. Let's head over now for the latest from the business of sport with Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Good afternoon. Let's start off with the business of sports in athletics. South Africa's Sports Minister, Gayton McKenzie, has promised to launch an investigation into the finances of Athletics South Africa, ASA, after it emerged in Parliament that President of ASA, James Moloi, used company credit card at taverns, liquor stores and other retail outlets. During a portfolio committee meeting on sport, arts and culture, Parliament was presented with bank statements revealing questionable transactions. It was revealed that ASA previously had 3 credit cards. One of them was registered to Moloi. He admitted to using it to entertain clients with alcohol at Shebins. McKenzie says they will investigate what happened.
Athletics South Africa, you couldn't take the athletes to Peru. You know how bad does this look? And some of the runners in different sporting codes, some of them pay for themselves. And then they hear the management, the body responsible for looking after them, is buying stuff at the tavern. We will be forensically investigating on top of the answers that the portfolio committee has asked. I will have a full forensic audit with immediate effect.
During the meeting of the Portfolio Committee of Sports, Arts and Culture, James Moloi said his company credit card was used to pay for food during a business meeting. He said he only used the card for business-related expenses. He further said he normally meet different people, business people, the people that have promised him to do business with Athletics South Africa. One of the crucial lines of questioning in Parliament related to the irregular credit card expenditure, revealing transactions at various taverns, shisha-nyamas in South Africa and liquor stores, including Norman Goodfellows. McKenzie says taverns are not conducive for any meeting.
There's no meeting that can be held in a tavern. The music is so loud in a tavern. How do we listen? How do we hear each other in a tavern? Who has a meeting in a tavern? People are dancing. Then the issue of Norman Goodfellows. You know, we are in this drive to get sponsorship.
Allegations of financial misconduct have emerged against ASA president, and there was another purchase later at Coffee in Gqeberha in Newlands where he bought alcohol for $499. And also, it was further revealed that on January 2024, the credit card was used at another tavern in the Free State province. McKenzie says this creates difficulties when asking for sponsorships.
Because if I go tomorrow and ask people to give ASA money, which I've done in the past, I've raised millions for you already. I picked up a phone and I raised millions for Athletics South Africa. But now I hear these things of taverns. It can't be right. There's no excuse.
Now, football news. SABC Sports football commentator Michael Abramson is delighted with the country's state of football development, however believes plenty can be achieved with the financial muscle to develop the game further. Banyana Banyana has faced some financial challenges in the past, particularly related to delayed payments and insufficient sponsorship revenue, but they have also received financial assistance from the government and other sources.
I think you can always fix things, and there are always different things that you can do, but the fact that we've got so many talented youngsters coming through, if you look at the under 17s, under 20s, qualifying for big tournaments now at the moment, the structures are in place. I think our coaching systems are good. We've got high quality coaches. I get a chance to speak to a lot of them on my show, and they've got really good ideas. And a lot of talented youngsters who are just making their name. There's so many to talk about in our domestic league. and those names that you haven't even heard of who did recently so well in the under 20 tournament, just names like Tylan Smith and others that South Africans wouldn't have been aware of, who are just now showing what they can do on the world stage. So I think our structures are in place. We just need to maybe get a bit more financial muscle and give these players the chance to develop further. But there's definitely future Bafana internationals.
Let's end with basketball. The controlling stake of the Los Angeles Lakers is to be sold to Chelsea co-owner Mark Walter with a franchise valuation of $10 billion, the highest ever for a professional sports franchise. As part of the deal, Jeannie Buss, whose family has had control of the Lakers since her father bought the team in 1979, intends to remain as team governor. It is not clear how much more of the Lakers that Walter is acquiring. He was part of the group that bought 27% of the Lakers in 2021. Jeannie Buss will still own at least 15% of the Lakers once this transaction is completed. By NBA rule, a governor must have at least that much of an ownership stake. Walter is intensely private in shunning the spotlight. He is CEO of financial services firm Guggenheim Partners, which is estimated to have more than $325 billion in assets. Johnson is among Guggenheim's investors. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
We turn our focus now to the construction industry. It is proactively preparing to adapt to increasingly frequent inclement weather patterns. This is the view of industry experts attending the Big Five Construct South Africa and the South African Infrastructure and Water Expo currently taking place in Midrand. Confidence levels are on the rise within the industry, fueled by planned government infrastructure as well. Government infrastructure spending that aims to inject over 1 trillion rand into public infrastructure over the next 3 years. Diabo Setu has more.
This event has been dubbed the largest construction gathering in the region. The Big Five Construct South Africa and South Africa Infrastructure as well as Water Expo serves as a crucial platform for trade, bringing together international and local companies and manufacturers to showcase different products and services under one roof. Event organizers say there are promising signs of a recovery in the sector, particularly in light of the government's commitment to invest heavily in infrastructure development.
The whole remit of the government's plan, National Development Plan, and the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, just to make South Africa a construction site, is that mandate is so good because it's going to flow all the way down to grassroots level. So as an industry, we are picking up. There is a lot of opportunity. I think Infrastructure SA also do a fantastic job in facilitating projects and making sure that they are project ready and worth it.
Global weather patterns are forcing industries, particularly construction, to innovate and consider the adoption of climate-resistant materials that can withstand unpredictable conditions. As an industry closely tied to environmental factors, construction is significantly affected by the weather. Decisions related to project plans, material selections, building strategies and construction timelines are influenced by climatic conditions.
If you think about incidences that have been happening in KZN, Eastern Cape and even other provinces, it says to the industry, build differently, and you need to gather around the design boardrooms to say, what does it mean to build differently? What materials do you need? What types of designs do you need? Important element is you must study the geotechnical reports to understand the type of soil that you are building in nowadays and what will happen if it's shaken. What type of foundations should you be working on?
Infrastructure South Africa emphasizes the importance of integrating climate mitigation strategies into its operations. It calls for the use of sustainable and alternative building products.
Climate mitigation strategies are part and parcel of the work that we do in Infrastructure South Africa, as well as the entire built environment space. It's very important that we start applying alternative building technologies alternative building materials, and we make sure that part of the planning is not to put structures like housing, for example, and other types of infrastructure, be it schools, like you mentioned, the schools, be it clinics, be it the hospitals. We cannot build those on floodplains, for example, and so part of the planning is to be able to address that and make sure that it's inculcated in the manner in which we're going to be delivering infrastructure in the future. And so that's a matter that's been taken very seriously from our side, and as part of planning and packaging for infrastructure projects, we do actually make sure that that is embedded in the manner in which we prepare and package these projects.
Meanwhile, the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs has declared a national disaster following severe weather in the country. It says the magnitude and severity of weather conditions warrants a national response. Diabosito, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Now, as the Commonwealth sets its sights on achieving $2 trillion in intra-Commonwealth trade by the year 2030, policymakers as well as trade experts met for discussions in Windhoek, Namibia, to unpack what it will take to reach that ambitious target. The conversation took place on the sidelines of the 2025 Commonwealth Trade Ministers meeting. Channel Africa's Lebogang Mabange was there and filed this report.
With just 5 years to go until 2030, the pressure is mounting on Commonwealth nations to ramp up collaboration, bridge structural trade gaps, and unlock inclusive growth. In Windhoek, during an interactive panel dubbed Staying the Course to $2 trillion, speakers from Africa to the Pacific called for bold action and a new approach to partnership. Dr. Nangula Wanja, CEO of the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, made it clear that Africa's untapped potential is not a footnote, but the foundation of the Commonwealth's future.
Africa is untapped in terms of investments, in terms of trade, in terms of culture, in terms of cuisine, in terms of energy. Africa is untapped. And therefore, the future of the growth of the Commonwealth, of the growth of the world, lies in Africa. Africa's success equals to Commonwealth success because Africa is a significant member of the Commonwealth.
But even with opportunity, the road to $2 trillion remains steep. Anil Bardwaj, chair of the Intra-Commonwealth SME Association, warned that the target is still far off and will require a fast, coordinated push.
We have already set a goal for ourselves for achieving $2 trillion target for intra-Commonwealth trade, and we are less than halfway at this moment. And in next 5 years, we intend to cover almost half. Not easy, it is certainly audacious, but at the same time, the goal has to be challenging enough to galvanize us into action.
He added that many structural barriers still stand in the way, especially in areas of law, regulation, and global trade alignment.
I think a lot of work needs to be done. And there are barriers. As a matter of fact, structural gaps that exist that need to be addressed. Take the example of regulatory part. Now, harmonization is taking place. Global competition is happening. 75% of trade is being routed through global value chains. So harmonization of laws, modernization of laws is one important aspect or challenge that is before us in most of the member countries.
The challenges are especially visible for small island developing states who face geographic and economic constraints that limit their full trade integration. Henry Tunupopo from Samoa's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade laid out the obstacles.
Many small island developing states, Samoa continues to face enduring structural challenges. These include our geographic isolation. No one can find us on the map. Limited economies of scale. The costs for trade and transportation are very high, as well as the vulnerability to external shocks such as climate change and global economic disruptions. These factors impact our full integration into regional and global value chains.
Still, there's hope in targeted strategies. Tunupopo says Samoa is investing in sectors that fit their context, including tourism, digital trade, and labor mobility.
To scale our participation in these value chains, Samoa has focused on sectors where we see quite strong potential. These include, to no surprises, trade and services, particularly in tourism and business support. There is a huge focus on labor mobility in our part of the world due to the income opportunities and skills development it provides for our people. Digital trade, which offers new frontiers for small economies, especially for those as isolated as us in the Pacific.
Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Windhoek, Namibia.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba. Alors peut-on considérer cette décision comme un désengagement durable des États-Unis vis-à-vis du développement africain ou s'agit-il d'un simple réalignement stratégique?
Bon, ça peut être les deux à la fois. Donc, au lieu de donner de l'argent à la Banque africaine de développement pour partager en vrac, ils préfèrent maintenant donc cibler les pays partenaires en Afrique. Ça, c'est pour le réalignement stratégique. Alors, et aussi, ce n'est pas un désengagement durable, mais je pense que dans les 2 ou 3 prochaines années, il veut d'abord remettre de l'ordre dans ses affaires.
Vue d'Afrique. Du lundi au vendredi de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
From markets to innovation, Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus, Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 4:47 Central African time as we continue our focus on the Commonwealth. And across the Commonwealth, women entrepreneurs are playing a vital role in driving innovation and creating jobs, as well as contributing to inclusive economic growth. Yet, despite their impact, many continue to face significant barriers, including limited access to finance, restricted market entry, and a persistent digital divide that keeps them from fully engaging in global trade. To explore these issues further, we are joined this afternoon by Nuren Jana, advisor on small states at the Commonwealth Business Women's Network in the Maldives. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business. Good to have you with us.
Good afternoon. Great to be here with you.
So, Nuren, women entrepreneurs across the Commonwealth are clearly making an impact, but many do face systemic barriers. From your perspective, which of these challenges do you deem to be most urgent? Which would you prioritize as those that need to be dealt with now?
So, a really great question. I've just come from a panel discussion with an amazing group of Namibian women entrepreneurs as well. And I think what's really clear is that women entrepreneurs are doing it, and they're doing it, with their resilience, with their ideas and their innovation. And what's really needed is to give them resources. So I think access to finance is a really big topic. And particularly when we talk about access to finance, we particularly talk about not necessarily loans and credit, although that is really important. The gender credit gap is 320 billion globally, so it's still a long way to go, but also having innovative financial products and access that is, we were talking about venture capital, for example. How can we ease bringing in venture capital externally into small states like Namibia and other countries that maybe don't have as much capital in place, and how do we then encourage that capital to go to investment ready women-owned businesses as well? I think this is the most pressing issue that I'd highlight.
And thank you for actually touching on that, because those financing models are important. But let's take a look at the availability of these financing instruments specifically for women in business. And also you spoke about venture capitalism or venture capitalists. How accessible is that?
So a really great question. So I am a chartered accountant by profession, so I do look at financial instruments globally. I think at the moment, the understanding for particularly micro and small to medium enterprises is that we want to get access to loans or that startup capital that are coming from banks, but there are other financial products that are coming through. I have a foundation that's based in the Maldives that we've just launched a very small micro grant fund. So all the way from startup capital that comes from seed funding or micro grant grants that enable entrepreneurs that are starting out not to go into debt, because then you're going to be servicing the debt rather than growing your business, all the way to venture capital. Venture capital is very much about the network and who you know. And so I think if I can plug this in here, that's where networks like the Commonwealth Business Women's Network come into play, where we do have a global presence across the 56 nations of the Commonwealth. And then in my role, I'm really trying to connect the 33 small states as well, to try and figure out how we can have the platform to access that as well. It's also, I think I want, in addition to the network and having the introductions to the right people, it's also important that the entrepreneurs know how to pitch, because there's a particular way that you might apply for loans and traditional financial products, but how do you pitch to venture capital investors who are values aligned, who also give you or keep control, give you control of the business as well, which is really important.
It's so important to also look at equity as well. And you spoke about
Yes.
servicing loans instead of reinvesting those funds back into your business. So that's also just really important. But I'd like us to talk about digital inclusion as well for women entrepreneurs. What are the practical steps that can be put in place or that are currently existing where women are being included in the digital landscape?
I think women are probably more online, as I can see. But the thing is, we've been hearing today a statistic from Namibia that actually micro and small to medium entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, are less profitable. So it's really figuring out how women are using those tools. We're hearing about compliance burdens and, women want to go and do their business. And I think all entrepreneurs just want to go and do the business, but then they forget that there's a compliance piece. So there's a lot. I'd say if I would break it down to 2 points of what's existing, there's lots of existing solutions to help you run your business. So including taxes and compliance and accounting. So if you can automate that from day one, it just eases the way that you do business. There's also, really a lot of talk about e-commerce platforms and being able to connect borderless trade. I think there is definitely an existing challenge that we do have regionally in the Africa region. There's, certain payment portals that allow for that. But I think it's still a really nascent part, which will help if we can really build on that. And using the Commonwealth platform, I think having an e-commerce platform that is across the Commonwealth or at least within the region in Africa will help. And
Certainly.
then really leveraging and building that. Yeah.
Noreen, Jana, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon as the conversations continue around women in business in the Commonwealth. That's the Commonwealth Business Network, Women's Network in the Maldives. We thank you so much for your time. That's Noreen Jana. It's an absolute pleasure. She takes us to exactly 4:53 Central African time as we turn our focus now to the Land Bank. Well, in partnership with the European Union and the Department of Agriculture, the Land Bank have launched the Wine Spirits Fund. And this is all to transform the South African wine and spirit industry by providing financial resources, training, as well as support, and specifically for Black-owned businesses and farmers. The Land Bank says fund is all about breaking barriers. It's about impacting ownership and rewriting the rules of an industry steeped in heritage. To break this down further for us, we joined on the line by Mireki Mosia, the head of third-party fund administration at Land Bank. A very good afternoon to you. Good to have you with us on Africa in Business. Perhaps a good place to start is what the total value of this Land Bank EU and Department of Agriculture fund is, and how exactly will it be dispersed? Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having us as Land Bank. I'm coming through to you just after the launch this morning. We are quite excited. This program has been long coming, and it's definitely meant to make a huge impact in transforming the wine and spirit sector. Directly to your questions, the value of the total fund combined is 15 million euro, but the Land Bank will just be responsible for just one component, which is valued at 10 million euro. The other component, there's another implementing agency, the National Agriculture Marketing Council, that will be responsible for the marketing and distribution aspect. But the Land Bank will really be focusing on the transformative aspect of the sector, where we will be funding Black-owned brands, women, youth, in making sure that the inclusion in the agricultural sector is enhanced. And in terms of how this will work, we will receive applications as per normal. Those will be assessed, for those who are deserving, who meet the qualifying criteria. Those would then be supported accordingly.
And perhaps let's go straight into those qualifying criteria. Who qualifies? Does one need to already be in business, or can you be a startup at concept stage, or do you need to be already operational?
The fund is meant to open doors for everyone. So both existing brands and those who are coming in for the first time. As we are closing out on the youth month, we are very much targeting as well young people. And definitely to make sure that they are able to enter the sector, it would be unreasonable for us to say they've got to have operational entities. So the door is open for everybody. If you have a concept that meets the criteria, that is viable, that we can be able to assist you, by all means, you are welcome to come through.
And Mr. Mosia, which part of the value chain is this fund targeting? Are we talking vineyards, wineries, bottling, export, or is it holistic?
It is holistic. Across the value chain, there are funds that are available for people who have ambitions to own land and to buy land. There are funds that are available for people who want to partner with existing entities. So those people who are wanting to buy equity, funds are available for those. For brands that are available and maybe they want to buy, as an example, equipment or something like that, we have funds available. So across the entire value chain, the Land Bank is open for business to support entrepreneurs and farmers in this particular sector.
Wow, really great news for those who are in the industry. Thank you very much, Mr. Mereki Mosia, for your time and update this afternoon. Much appreciated, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's Mr. Mereki Mosia, the head of third-party fund administration at the Land Bank. What a huge feat, the launch of the Wine and Spirits Fund, there to transform the South African wine industry. It is 4:57 Central African time as we wrap up Africa in Business and say bonjour to Vue d'Afrique. Bonjour Joël.
Bonjour Thami, bonjour à tous les auditeurs de Channel Africa. Alors sur Vue d'Afrique, on parlera du Gabon. La loi portant réforme des partis politiques a été adoptée à 59 voix contre 7. Et nous parlerons aussi des réactions qui se multiplient en RDC après que le ministre de la Justice, Constant Mutamba, ait déposé sa démission. C'est tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci de rester connecté. Merci Thami.
Merci Joël. Vue d'Afrique coming up in just a moment. Well, that's how we come to the end of this edition of Africa in Business. Thank you to our entire team. From the news desk, Jwalane Etulo, Nosipo Zuma and Figile Lingwati, who brought us the sports. And from our production team, our producer Mabubu Loka, technical operator Katu Madava, and social media Nzako Mashaba. I'm Thami Ngubeni for Africa in Business on Channel Africa. Au revoir. À demain.